I truly despise the algorithms of social media. One of the things that we need to do is get into the mind of our buyer. On one side of the spectrum is manipulation. The other side is persuasion. I didn't do $1 million in a day. I did $1 million in 5. I truly think I'm building $1 billion company.
Hey, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Stephen. Real excited to be here. Listen to some of your podcasts. I love what you do, man.
I appreciate it. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love you already. So I tend not to have people on a podcast that I don't know. I'm very lucky that most of them, are kind of friends. We've kicked around. We've got to know each other better and better. And a good friend of mine, Atiba, reached out and said, "You got to speak to Mike." And I'm not being rude, but I always, why? That was my first question. And I remember you got into the chat and you were like, "Hey, no stress. This is me. If you want to chat," and you all kind of like a bit cool about it. And I won't say offish, but hey, there was no stress with you. Yeah. And so I thought, okay, I got a few minutes and I'll just have a little kind of look to find out this guy. Straight away, when you Google your name, it comes up that you are the Michael Jordan of digital marketing. And following that, we ended up jumping on the phone and having a chat. I never do that. And I really enjoyed having the conversation with you. There's a lot behind you. You're a serial entrepreneur. You came from running some of the largest car dealerships, I believe, for quite some time. And then realizing, hey, the digital space is where I want to be. And you didn't just dabble in it. You co-founded Kartra, as well as several other household name companies. What was the transition? I want to hit on this bit first. The transition from in-person car dealerships to online. What was that like, and how did that fester?
All right, let's get in the DeLorean. I'm going to take you back in time. Okay. I'm a kid born in 1967, and my brother was born in 65, and I truly believe he was the end of the baby boom, and I was start of Generation X. He went to high school in the 1970s. He looked like something out of a Led Zeppelin, album. He had the V-neck shirts with the big collars and the hair that went like this, and the mustache, right out of there. The smoking the doobs, all that type of stuff. And I'm a kid. I'm a kid of the 80s. I graduated in 85. So my formative years were 82, 83, 84, 85. I was MTV, Rock and Roll Federation with the WWE fighting Cyndi Lauper. I've got the bi-level haircut, parachute pants, legit, seriously. And so my brother graduates high school, and, we're these kids that grow up with, I'm an Intellivision kid, you're an Atari kid, and then there's the ColecoVision. And then suddenly in the 80s, this explosion hits. It's today, it's still the best-selling computer of all time in the Guinness Book of World Records. The Commodore 64 comes out. And so I get it, and I'm using it to play games. And I don't even know that what I'm writing is actually a code language called BASIC. And it came with this little manual, and it had these little programs that you could write, and I'm following along. 10, type this, line 20, print your name. 30, go back to 10, hit enter, and I see my name go across the screen. And I think that day I said, wow, I can make this thing do anything that I want. So don't really know what I'm doing in life. I'm working at a supermarket. I go to, my guidance counselor says, hey, you like computers? You should go, to New York Institute of Technology. So I go there. I studied computer science, did 2.5 years, and then didn't graduate. I got married and had to get into the car business. But I was so good at this stuff that when I was in high school, they didn't have a curriculum. Then the Apple II comes out, and now suddenly they're teaching it in my senior year. They don't have anybody to teach it. They send the math professors to Stony Brook University for a crash course, and they're teaching. And I'm like, actually, Mr. Preston, literally had me come up and help him teach the class on the board. So my mind, I'm a left brain, right brain guy. I love automation. As soon as when I saw AI, I freaked out about, oh, wow, what we can do with this. I'm a big junkie for that. So I get married and I get in. My father owned a car dealership, Wanto, Mazda, Peugeot in Long Island. And so he had no nepotism. He says, no, you want to learn the business, you go apply. Don't mention my name, nothing. And I got in the car business. He wanted me to figure it out on my own. And so while I'm learning sales, I'm the guy in the car dealership looking at this board behind me, like a magnet board. And you have these little magnets that represent a car. And Stephen, if you wanted a car, you would hide it and put it in your drawer and then might forget about it for 2 years. And we're like, what's that car with a tree growing through the engine back there? And so I said, this is ridiculous. Why do we have an inventory system with magnets and constantly losing keys? So I was the one that I wrote a program to do our leases. I computerized the inventory and I computerized the key system. And then I built one of the first business development centers where we take the customer's information and put it into a computer that sends them email messages and stuff. And, this was late 90s, early 2000s. And I was, trying to do all of this stuff. And so I was like born for this stuff, but I'm in the car business. That's what my family did. And suddenly in 2002, I get an email from Frank Kern. And it literally said the subject line, "The Secrets to Online Profits." And I click it, I open it, and, it had everything an entrepreneur. I was in a couple of MLMs when I was a kid. I was in Melaleuca and all these things. So I was a kid that if you had a business opportunity and then you tied it to tech, like I was like, oh my God, this is like, for me, it's a video course that's going to teach me how to set up a domain and how to sell products online. And so I jumped into online marketing with both feet. I was one of these rare kids that I think because of my technical background and my sales background, because as I said, I ran the second largest Hyundai dealership in the country and the ninth largest Toyota dealership in the country on Long Island. And so now I start dabbling from October 2022, by March of 2023, I'm doing like $5,000 a month. And by August of next year, I quit. I'm making like $75,000 a month. And I'm suddenly being known as a guru. But this was in the early days. This is 2003, 2004. There was no Facebook. MySpace hadn't come out. There was no YouTube. And we were still using all of our high school photos, for our picture on the web. And then I went to a seminar called the Big Seminar that Armin Morin did in 2005. And then all of a sudden I'm meeting all of my idols, John Reese, Armin Morin, Frank Kern, Jeff Walker. And as I'm meeting them, they're like, oh no, I know who you are. And, I had like this, I don't want to say anything politically incorrect, but like I had this ridiculous smile on my face, just like, oh my God, this is great. And they let me into their circle. One of the things was at that time I was already 37 years old, so I had some level of maturity. I wasn't the kid that was like, hey, here I am with my Lambo. And we just formed this really great mastermind with about 16 of the top marketers in the industry.
So you moved away from it. I'm getting the sense straight off the bat that you're very curious. You see something, you're like, "Ooh, how can I play with that? How can it help me?" There's a lot of attitude today, like you say about AI. Oh God, what can this do? There's a lot of people that actually look at things and they are instantly scared of things. A lot of people are scared of change. You actually look at it more as a curious child, and you're a serial entrepreneur. So you've gone from making these programs. You're now, very importantly, and I say this is one of the decisive factors of anyone's growth, is to make sure you get in the right rooms. I know Frank and Jeff and those boys, so you made sure you were in the right rooms to quite simply save you months and potentially years to get in those kind of rooms that would challenge you. So where did Kartra come into this when you co-founded that?
So most people look at me as a guru online, and what I'll usually say to them is, name an information product I did that wasn't tied to software. Really, I'm a software developer. So John Reese in August of 2004, he's the first guy to do $1 million launch. We were all selling $47 and $37 products. John had this idea. He's like, I'm really well connected. If I create $1,000 course, I only need 1,000 people to buy it, and I'll make $1 million. And he knew with all of his influence that he could get that done. And sure enough, he did $1 million in a day. And he wrote a report in August of 2004. It was titled "One Man, One Product, 1 Million, One Day." And he spoke about what he did. And he said that this guy, Jeff Walker, basically gave him this formula. And that's where the product launch formula came from. And he equated it to Roger Bannister, crossing the 4-minute mile. He said, I believe that this is going to be common. I think there's going to be $1 million launches and $1 million days. And I hope that this inspires you to do that. So that day, August 30th of 2004, you could see I registered the domain name Butterfly Marketing. That report, I said, I'm going to do this. I've got this idea for software, and I'm going to create a product that I didn't do 1 million in a day. I did 1 million in 5. Poor me, but it was the second million. Yeah, slacking big time. Not even 4 days. Come on. And so that was a software product that incorporated some viral marketing principles. And it was the first technology in our industry that had the one-click upsell. Everybody was hacking it themselves, but like one shopping cart didn't have it. And so I created this platform that had that. And then I've always looked at different products in the industry, and I say, hey, if there's a Coca-Cola in this industry without a Pepsi, there's a great place for an opportunity. And if you end up being Dr. Pepper, that's okay. I mean, that's something I literally say all the time. And I saw ClickBank was somebody in the marketplace that had no competitors. So I created a competitor to it in 2005 called Paydotcom. It was a 9-letter domain, Paydotcom.com. And so Pay.com competed with ClickBank. And so I got into the shopping cart business in 2005, and I sold that in 2011 because 6 years starting in 2005, a lot had changed in the industry, and software was getting more mature, and I wanted to create something a little bit bigger. So we first created Webinar Jam because Google Hangouts came out. It was kind of like what we're doing here, and I said, if there's an embed code here, all I've got to do is create a marketing system that wraps around this embed and just sends email reminders, and I'll create a registration page builder. When we did that, I was like, hey, this isn't that far from replacing the embed from a Google Hangout to an automated video. And then we created the automated webinar and created EverWebinar. And while we were doing that, I was building my next version of Pay.com. And at this point, Optimized Press is out there, and Russell's doing ClickFunnels, and we kind of increased the scope with my partner Andy Jenkins at the time. And we said, hey, why don't we add email to the shopping cart in the affiliate program? And well, if we're going to do that, let's put a membership site. Look, we might as well do a page builder. They're the latest rage. And then we were like, all right, what else can we add? And we created today what I think is one of the best all-in-one platforms out there. I since sold that company, created a new competitor called Groove, but there's a poster right there on my wall that says Karcher. That's like my first child. It's very, very dear to me.
Do you like selling companies? I know a lot of people that are very good at initiating, but then they get bored and they look for the sell. So do you get into a company or get into a concept thinking, okay, I'm going to run this up the flagpole, then I'm going to sell it and move on? Or is that down the line thinking?
Yeah, that's a great question. The truth is, regardless of what's happened in the past, and it may appear that way, I am more of a built to last type of person than a built to flip. We get hit up by some VCs probably in the last 2 years, probably about 4 to 5 companies, mostly from New York. It's interesting, just one of these spam emails. Get you on the phone hey, how'd you hear about us? And they're like, whatever it is, we got referred to you or whatever the case is. And I say this to them, hey, here's the deal. I truly think I'm building $1 billion company. I may have some hubris when I say that, but Go High Level is doing $320 million. They're $1 billion company. ClickFunnels is $1 billion company. Kajabi raised $580 million on a $2 billion valuation. Samcart's raised about $200 million. An active campaign is worth $3 billion. Jasper, raised $110 million on a $1.1 billion valuation. So I'm in the industry where this can be done. I'm pretty good at what we've done. We've created the 3rd largest webinar platform in the world. So I tell the VC right from the beginning, before we waste anybody's time, are you looking to take over my company, get at least 51%, and then buy me, start out at a $50 million valuation, and then get us out of here in 3 years at a $100 million valuation, and say that we've doubled our income to our investors? And for all intents and purposes, the answer is, yeah, usually, Mike, what we want is we want control, and we want to probably create a portfolio of companies, and then we're going to roll it over in 3 to 4 years. Our investors want to turn money. I go, hey, I'm not your guy. I said, if you can get me, which I know I will, from 150 million to 100 million in 2 years, give me 5 years, we're going to build $1 billion company. And most of those guys aren't interested. And I'm willing to step down from a CEO position but I want to be part of this company. And I'm 56 years old. I'm going to be 57 this year. I dress like this, and I'm the same age Steve Jobs was when he passed away. And Steve lived in a simple house in Cupertino. If you came to Steve and offered him $100 billion, he would literally say, well, what the hell am I going to do with my life? Like, I don't necessarily need the money. And I'm at that point right now that I love my company Groove so much that I wake and I live and I breathe, and I don't have this zero sum mentality that I'm going to take down ClickFunnels or high level. I just want to compete at the highest level with these companies. And some people say to me all the time, Mike, if there was $300 million on the table, all of that talk would go away in a second. And I'm like, look, you're probably right. But my vision is I really love this company, and I want to build something special.
Let's talk about the VCs for a second. I've had a variety of companies, and I've been involved in a variety of companies, and getting investment can sometimes, while it looks good, be the biggest pain in the ass. Have you taken many investors, and have you taken much VC in your career?
No, we haven't taken money. We're right now seeking $11 million on a $55 million valuation. We had somebody so far on the hook. It's a real sad story, more for him obviously than for us. When I say sad story, he had a kidney transplant, and while we were doing the deal and inking the deal, he says, the only thing is, guys, I got to go back into the hospital. I'm getting an infection. And 2 weeks later, he passed away. And we were getting ready to ink that deal. Yeah, he was such a nice guy too. And so we haven't raised any money. And I think you bring up a great point. There's a lot of give and take when you bring on a partner. There's angel investors, there's smart money, there's people that can come in and should want to take control because they have that much, flex what they can do. And then there are some people that, might have sold. We've had a couple of situations like this, people that sold, their 13 gyms, and they've got some money and they're like, yeah, I want to invest, but they really want to be what I call the fourth musketeer in the company. They want to sit there at the table and go, well, here's my idea. And if they don't know anything about the business, with all due respect, it's like, let us just send you money, just stay out of the business. But then if it's the right guy, like I'm talking to somebody right now that I'm like, hey, if we can get a deal working with that person, I would let him take over COO. I would move into the CMO position. And then you have to understand, like what you said with board of directors, how much do they want? I don't party anymore, but I used to go to Vegas and I'd have a $15,000 night sometimes. I was a knucklehead through my midlife crisis. But, there are some times that you say to yourself, do you really want that? You have to put your big boy pants on, because people are going to be saying, hey, we need to ask, what was this $15,000 night? And you're going to be like, well, I got stupid and I bought champagne, right? And, people that invest their money don't want to see that. So you got to be prepared to be, when people put money into your company, that there's going to be a lot of inspections. And obviously you want to run a company tight, but they sort of get to tell you what to do a little bit, because, even though if they don't have control, there has to be a board, and you have to be able to play well with people.
Now, there's a lot of people out there. You mentioned Russell over at ClickFunnels. There's a lot of people out there that enjoy the limelight. And let's be blunt, Russell enjoys the knowledge there, or the notoriety, should I say. You didn't, and don't. I would say that as a personal brand of a company, with respect, you're kind of lacking on it. Because you're like, hey, let my company do the talking for me. I don't really need to, be posting on Instagram every 5 seconds. Why is it that you are anti? Because we're hearing a lot of people today go, hey, if you're in business, you need to be a personal brand of the business. Now, you've already said you need to be responsible, and you need to be respectable, and you need to be accountable. So $15,000 champagne nights, maybe that doesn't make the board happy. But you are not the kind of person who wants to be high up in the Instagram followers for your businesses. Why?
Well, a good question. Let's unpack that. So number one, yeah, Russell is a big face of his company. And
Yeah.
if you look at a company like Jasper, and I said, who's the face of that? Or Go High Level, or Kajabi, even Kajabi, right? There you kind of know. There's a guy named Kenny, and he runs it, but they're not out there, like Russell Brunson. Hey, everybody, it's Russell Brunson today. I'm gonna, And so I took a path somewhere in between. I think part of it can be because I want to make sure that I'm building a brand that is not solely relied on me. It's on the merit of our branding, positioning, marketing, and our intellectual property. But also, I'm a kid of the '80s. I'm getting to that point where I'm starting to realize I'm like, get off my lawn. I'm turning into that guy. I look at TikTok. No disrespect when I say things. I'm just speaking from a person from my generation. Sure. There's an OnlyFans generation for young women, and I truly despise the algorithms of social media. I think it's causing a decay in our society. And you get a young girl. I don't have a daughter, but I can imagine if I did. I had a little 15-year-old daughter, and she's just starting to go through puberty, and she makes a little post and she puts it out there, and she gets no likes. And then suddenly she sees what her friends are doing, and she crops the top a little bit and, puts a little booty out there. And next thing you know, you're so gorgeous, you're so beautiful. This thing is wiring kids the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so if you look at my Instagram, I've got 2 posts, and my Facebook, I'm not very, very active on Facebook. I understand the need for social media, so all my advertising goes there. I need to advertise where the eyeballs are. But my wife, by the way, big social media. And, I have this, unwritten rule, like don't take photos of me. And if you're going to post, make sure I'm aware. And even my friends know about that as well. I don't know why it is. It's just I have this sense of privacy. Now, I have a Facebook group for Groove. It has 152,000 members in the Facebook group. I just made a post today. I have to communicate with my members. But I think, and again, this is just me. It's obviously I should be on social media, but I just grew up more with a sense of privacy and not needing everybody to know my thing. And I think, to answer your question, Stephen, that could be why I'm not as front heavy as a person like Russell Brunson. And I put my brand first.
I'm interrupting this podcast for 35 seconds to give you more value. If you are an ambitious entrepreneur looking for the opportunity in everything you come across, don't just listen to this podcast. Imagine taking part in these conversations every week. Imagine having a new network of creative and disruptive entrepreneurs to support and push you into becoming the person you can be. With this high level and exclusive community, it exists. Head to simsdistillery.com to learn more. I don't think it's a bad thing. I certainly don't think. I think today, scarily, we think that there are rules. If technology is teaching us anything, it's teaching us that there are no rules. We're in the Wild West at the moment. I've got T-shirts older than the internet. So this is all very, very new to us. And people turning around going, well, you have to do this. No, you don't. If it works for you, do it and do more of it. But if you don't need it, hey, social... For a start, I hate the word social within social platforms because it's probably the most disconnected platform out there. But we need to be out there on certain aspects when it is our brand and what we use primarily for business. So I don't argue with your situation there at all. With that being said, you're very focused on making sure your business does the talking. And we've had a conversation prior about how you're very focused on the offer. And I loved what you said. You said that, and in our conversations, you have no ego. You're direct, you're straight, love it. And, I'm glad to be sharing a whiskey with you in the future. But I love the way you said, look, I'm not the best at copywriting, but stick me on a stage with 10 of the best, and I'm probably one of the best ones on there. Yeah. So how do you make sure your offer is compelling?
So obviously you have to believe in your product, right? There's a difference between when you're selling, on one side of the spectrum is manipulation and the other side is persuasion, all right? And we want to stay on persuasion and motivation. We don't want to be manipulating. But we have to understand that we are these there's a great book, right? Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. It was actually written by a university professor that was doing case studies, and the first book was actually like more like, here's how they get you, right? And then all of the people in direct response were like, this is a Bible, and then kind of like started asking him to speak on stages. But copywriting is merely lipstick, right? And there's expressions like, you're putting lipstick on a pig. Good copywriting is never going to make a bad offer work. What we have to do is we have to get down to the crux of the offer. And that starts with interviewing the clients. And my good friend, Donnie French, he's a part owner in a company called Performance Golf. And they do like 100 million plus a year. And they're always helping people solve their golf swing or their putter. And he goes to the driving range and he interviews people and he says, hey, what's going through your head? What's the fear when you play with your friends? And they'll say, I'm so good at the driving range. And then the second I get up, I freeze and I'm like, please God, don't slice it. And I completely whiff the ball and I'm like embarrassed because they're like, oh, I thought you were doing good. And so he starts getting into that psychology and then using that in the copywriting. Hey, do you feel that every time you go to the driving range and you do well, the second you set up to the tee and your friends are looking at you, and so one of the things that we need to do is get into the mind of our buyers. We need to understand what motivates them, what's their pain points, what keeps them up at night, and what pleasure are they moving towards. And so we start by talking to our clients and truly understanding. So when we have a conversational sales letter with them, we're actually talking to them. Then we use just some standard principles. In direct response, it's very important that you start with a big, bold promise. It needs to be right on the edge where the person thinks that sounds too good to be true, but enough that it's realistic that if he says what I'm saying, he's going to show me how in the next 30 days, these 5 fundamental laws can help me double my sales in my next webinar. All right, you got me. So you introduce a system. I like to introduce a system like the 12 fundamental laws, the 5 fundamental laws, or the 7 things you must absolutely do. And that system is important because it's something that you can say, I failed before I was there until I came across the system. We use frameworks like problem, agitate, solve, right? Identify the problem. You have acne. All right. But before we solve the problem, we really need to agitate that. Do you feel that it's affecting your ability to get dates? And do you feel that on your first date, when you go out with someone, when you see them looking at your face or you're having this conversation, that they're looking at your white head? And this is affecting your confidence and all these things. So you really have to agitate that problem. And then you have to introduce the solution. You have to introduce your unique mechanism. Many people have tried things before. It didn't work. What makes yours different? There's some things that you have to let people know, whatever situation they're in, it's not your fault. You're not alone. This is not a unique problem. And then you introduce case studies. This is what Steven said. And you want to have you'd never put your case studies at the end of an offer. Your case study are weaved into the offer. So if you were to say something like, hey, you might think you're technical. Let me introduce you to Steve. Steven used to be this. He never worked on a computer before, but after going through our system, here's the result. You might think you're too old or whatever the case. And so you weave those things in and you match the case studies, handle the objections that the customer has. And then all the way through, and then you get to the part of the offer. The offer has a framework. I call it the Ron Popeil framework. Literally go find him on YouTube, transcribe it, put it into ChatGPT, and tell it to make you an outline. After the product is the presentation is done, you have to set a price anchor, and you start with something like, and I'll do the little Ron Popeil, right? Now, you've probably seen other rotisseries, other rotisseries selling in luxury magazines that don't do half of what ours do, selling for $1,500, $2,000, up to $3,000. So what we just did is we created a price anchor. And that's where the next line comes from. And a lot of people don't know where this is, so they just put it on their slide and they're putting these cross-outs. But you don't cross out the price, you just say it. But as you know, you're not going to be paying $3,000 today, not $1,500, not $1,000. You're not going to be paying $797 or even $497 or even $397, not even $349. That's right. Today, you're going to pay just 3 easy payments of $99. And the next thing you do is you then establish what we call the faux price, and then you do another price drop. Once they believe that that's the actual price, you would then say something, but if you're one of the first, 50 people, we're going to slash off the last price and you'll get it for only 2 payments. And now when they're starting to say, hey, this is pretty cool, you reach down and you say, but wait, there's more. Here's a second rotisserie goal that we're going to give you. It makes a great Christmas gift for mom and dad. All we ask, reason why, all we ask is that you promise to tell us, to tell 3 friends, and we'll give you the second one for free. You just pay shipping and handling. Now you start saying, hey, you know what? I wasn't going to buy this, but I can check something off from my mom and dad for Christmas. I'll get them this air fryer or whatever the case may be. And then you go into the bonuses, and then you go into the risk reversal. We're so sure it's going to work that if it doesn't, you can send it back to us. We'll pay the shipping and keep the bonuses on us. And so when you transpose all of those things into your offer, it's okay. Now he tells me identify the problem. Now he says to you can literally just go down what I just mentioned right there. And it's just a framework. You put your heart and soul, and we always assume you're bringing a good product to the industry. That framework really had nothing to do with copywriting. That was the art of an offer. And then you go in, and the average person now today with a calculator for words called ChatGPT, you can literally have it write all of that for you. But even before, most people think that that's copywriting. That's really not copywriting. That's understanding a great offer and how to position and how to create a desire for the customer to let them know it's gonna alleviate their pain or move them towards the pleasure that they're seeking.
You may have seen my eyes go down because I was making some notes there. If anyone that's been listening to that has just been absolute gold. And the way you explain it was beautiful. A good friend of mine, Perry Belcher, says that if you can't explain it to an 8th grader, you can't explain it. And you've just simplified it. If everyone needs to look at that offer now and make sure it follows that rotisserie structure. That was beautiful. I know you're not social. You've already said that. Doesn't mean you're not friendly, but you don't want to be posting pictures of your cat or wearing a crop top, as you've already told us. But if people want to learn more about you, and we're actually going to talk about Groove, and I know we're going over time, but please I hope you're going to stay with me a couple more minutes because I want to get into that. But how can people find out about what you're doing, what you're up to, and find out more about you? Where's the best place to direct people to?
I would say the best place is probably just the main company, Groove.CM. There, you can learn about my CRM platform, Groove, our AI platform, all of the different things that we do. We do something, Stephen, I don't even know if I told you this when we first got introduced. I run something called the marketerscruise.com. We just did our 17th year. We're going on our 18th year. Last year, we set sail with over 500 entrepreneurs. I started out first thing is I went on a cruise to Nova Scotia, and it was in 2004. And this guy who's sitting next to me, such a nice guy, he had a brick and mortar business. It wasn't plumbing, but it was something like that. And I remember at dinner, after the third day, he was just fascinated with what I do, and he would just be eating it. He'd look over and he'd go, all right. So I was telling my wife, so you build websites, right? And I was like, no, I don't build websites. I market online. He was like, well, what would you do for me? And I was like, I had a good time with him, but I said, man, wouldn't this be great if I actually, at this whole table, I had some digital marketers. So the next year we went with 18 people, and we had so much fun. The year after that, I invited my mastermind, and we went with 68 people. And then me and the guy that was helping me do it, Captain Lou, I said, hey, let's open this up to the public, and let's call it the Marketers Cruise. We're going to have the people book with us direct through Carnival. We won't make any rates. I don't make any money on it. Captain Lou probably makes this $100,000 as a travel agent. And I just said, I want to create, as an ambassador for the industry, a place where we take a vacation together. Bring the kids, bring the spouse, bring your parents, bring your next door neighbor. It's your cruise. And we wanted 70% fun, 30% when we're out in the ocean and not docking, that from 10 to 1, we would meet and share some different things. And so that went from 250 people to 300, all the way up to over 500. Then COVID kind of really kicked our butt because the cruises didn't open for 2 years, and we kind of had to rebuild. 2 years ago was a real slow year, 200 people. But last year we sold with about 500 people. And so you could learn about all of those things over at Groove Digital. And that's a nice place, I'd love to see somebody come join us on the Marketers Cruise.
I've heard about Marketers. I've never been on it, but I know many, many people that have been, and they've always come back kind of like, having a great time and asking me why I haven't gone. So maybe I need to reconsider that. Let's talk about Groove as we start kind of like heading out here now. And again, thanks for staying on a bit longer. You're building up a CRM platform, okay? My first question's got to be why. There's a lot of CRMs out there. And I love the fact that you said, look, if there's a Pepsi out there and there's not a Coca-Cola, and you look for where the opportunity is, and you're curious. So for me, I'm looking at the world and going, well, there's a lot of CRMs, but you're obviously seeing something I'm not. So why actually bring that out, and why is yours the one that we should be looking at?
So a lot of people look at me as a ClickFunnels competitor. When they came out, they said, back in 2020, they said, oh, you're going to compete with Russell. And I would joke and I would say, I'm not competing with Russell. I'm competing with myself. And they would look at me like, what do you mean? I said, I already built this. It's called Kartra. I said, I started building this in 2011. So when I built Kartra, Webinar Jam, EverWebinar, it was my company. I had 51%. Hector had 49%. Andy and I were doing these information products. Andy since passed away. He had pancreatic cancer. But Andy and I were doing information products like Traffic Genesis and Video Genesis. And then I told Andy in 2013, hey, I've got to take off for about 6 months. I got to go launch Webinar Jam and EverWebinar. He had nothing to do with that. And he said, Mike, what do you think? I'm just going to wait around for you for 6 months. Either we're going to start a company or we're not. You got to decide. And he was kind of right. And I was like, well, do you want to come in with me in this company? I'll give you half of my shares. And he said, and who has the other half? I said, Hector. He goes, so he's going to have 49%. You and me are going to have 25%. And he's getting Mike Filsaime and Andy Jenkins. And he's the majority owner. He says, no. He says, I wouldn't even consider it. But if I did, it would have to be equal. So I was 34. Hector was 33. Hector diluted, and Andy was 33. And we launched Webinar Jam and EverWebinar, and it completely took off. And then from there, we changed the name from Marketing Genesis to Genesis Digital, and just got away from the info products. And I let Andy into the company, and it changed the dynamic. He was a Marine. He's up at 6 a.m. He was a go, 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 go. I'm a little more passive, but I have my vision, and it completely took over, and I became very subsidiary. We got along really good, but as business partners, we didn't. Partnerships are like marriages. It didn't work out. We'll just leave it there. One of us had to go. We had that conversation. I said, look, I'll take the buyout. I didn't want to. I still have that board right up there that says Kartra. I love that company even to this day. But I had a 2-year non-compete, and I sold that company in 2016. And from 2016 to 2018, ClickFunnels comes out. And now Russell does such a good job with that. Now I'm out of the industry for 2 years. I wasn't even allowed to be on stage. I couldn't market. So I kind of disappeared for a while. Now I come back. I don't have any developers. I don't have a single person on my team. And I'm going to now start a company. In 2018, it took me till 2020 to show up. And by the time I showed up, people were like, oh, you're here with a shopping cart. But this is, you can equate to Steve Jobs. And I'm not the type of guy that's like saying I'm like Steve Jobs, but in terms of the story, Steve had a passion for the Macintosh. And like it was his, and his passion was so strong. Next thing you know, the board found his way arguing with him, and he found himself on the outs of his own company. So what did he do? With a vengeance, he went out and he created the operating system that we're still using today in the Mac. He created Next Computer. It was so good that Apple bought Next Computer and made it their operating system, OS X. And so for me, Groove is my next computer. I had to sit on the sideline, and now I said, now I'm going to build something where it's my vision. I have the majority control of everything, and I'm creating a better Kartra, and where Ever Webinar was a separate product. I included it. Kartra didn't have a blog. I included a blogging platform. Kartra doesn't have the e-commerce platform like Shopify, so we created a Shopify component as well. And so Kartra does just basically pages, but it doesn't do dynamic websites with full navigation. So we wanted something where you could get completely off of WordPress. And then last year we added Groove.AI, and we created a component that's like a better Jasper. And we put everything all into one platform.
And that URL is?
Groove.CM. And that's .cm because customers matter. That's the way we brand it. The truth is, Stephen, don't tell anybody, it's .cm because the .com was taken and they wouldn't sell it for $5 million and I wasn't buying. They said they've already turned down $5 million. I said, well, okay, this is going to be a short call. And so, I didn't want to get like high level. Their company is really called High Level. They couldn't get it. So they got Go High Level.
Yeah.
And my team and I were arguing. They were like, let's get getgroove.com or just Groove. And I was like, I want to be known as Groove. And so we took the domain from Cameroon, and half my partners hated it. And then Donna said, do you remember 1-800-MATTRESS, MATTRES, and leave the last S off for savings? Let's do the same thing. If you guys don't like the .cm, because everybody's going to be like .com, just say .cm because customers matter. And then everybody was like, oh, I love that. And you see it in my Facebook group. People are like, why are they .cm? And everybody, because it's customers matter. And we just turned the negative into a positive.
Do you know, little side note for you, when I started coming out as a personal brand, I couldn't get Steve Sims absolutely everywhere. So the second I put my middle initial in there, D, I got it everywhere. So I literally said the same thing. Hey, I'm Steve D. Sims. Don't forget the D for dashing. And as long as you can link something to it, they'll remember it. I've got to admit, I'm going to remember CM because customers matter. Mike, you've been real fun on this show, and I want to thank you for giving us some absolutely incredible nuggets that I know I'm going to go away and make notes on. I'm going to put the links to your websites in here. I wish you all the best. And hey, I'm guessing that this isn't the end. There's a journey here with you. Yeah. So I'm going to openly put it out there now. I don't know what you're going to be up to, but I want a podcast part 2 when you start doing it.
You got it. Done deal. You'll be my first guest. How about that?
Appreciate it. Look after yourself, pal. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. You know what to do. If you love it, share, subscribe, but more than anything, do something with it. And remember, life's too short to play it safe. So disrupt, connect, and grow. See you next time.